Hi, welcome to Featured Favorites, a little special program we have out of the Henry S. Olcott Memorial Library. I'm Dan Smola, and my very special guest is John Cianciosi. And so with this program, I ask people to come in and speak a little bit about their favorite books that our library has. But I'm not going to give John a chance to say that right away. I'm first going to ask John just to say a little bit, like the short version of your background, how long you've been here, and then what you were doing before you came here to the Theosophical Society.
Okay, well, thank you, Dan. I've been at the Theosophical Society working full-time for about 6 years, 7 years. I've been in Chicago since 1995, and since my first arrival here, I had some contacts with the Theosophical Society and did some teaching here. I used to teach classes, yoga classes, and give talks on Buddhism. Quest Books, the publishing house, published my book. And so I've had ongoing relationships with this organization for, I'd say, about 17 years. And before that, I had some contacts in Australia because I lived in Perth, Western Australia for many years, where I was the abbot of a Buddhist monastery. And I had close affiliations with the Theosophical Society in Perth, Western Australia. And I was, as I said, a Buddhist monk altogether for about 23 years. 10 years in Thailand and about 13, 14 years in Australia. Before becoming a Buddhist monk, I graduated from college, had a degree in chemistry, and before studying in Australia, I lived in Italy, where I was born. So that's my journey that brings me to the present moment here at Olcott, and I'm more or less the resident Buddhist here.
And I apologize for this because there may not be a short answer available, but do you think you can remember what first drew you to Buddhism?
Yes, I think it was a sense of dissatisfaction, a feeling of not really being happy or at peace, and not so much because of things outside, but I realized that it was primarily because of things inside. And what attracted me most to Buddhism was the teachings of meditation that seemed to suggest that if we take the time to do some introspection and make the effort to teach and train the mind, we can actually achieve very peaceful states and even states of freedom. That was very appealing to me.
Thank you. So you lead our Buddhist discussion group every Tuesday from 12:30 to 1:30, which local people are welcome to attend. It's in the library. And though it is kind of a book discussion group, you often, sometimes tongue-in-cheek, sometimes not, caution us about reading too much, so to speak. So could you give just a little short advice about how you might recommend people balance spiritual reading with the rest of their spiritual practice?
Right. My teacher in Thailand was not a great scholar. He was a Buddhist monk, a meditation master, a tremendously inspiring human being. And all of that attracted me, had nothing to do with his intellectual, scholastic knowledge. He had never been to a university, but he obviously had a deep sense of wisdom about life that gave him a real peace, clarity, and understanding of the human condition, to the extent that not only was he perfectly contented and peaceful, but able to guide others. That's what drew me. And in his teaching, he often discouraged people from reading a lot. He discouraged just study, because study it's just more knowing about stuff. It does not mean that we can live it or that we actually understand it in a way that it's internalized. So I don't have great. I think learning is important. I think reading the map before you set off on the journey is very important. But if all you do is read the map, it's a waste of time.
One more little sidetrack question before we get to the final question. What about a person who's new to meditating and they say, I want to meditate, but I can't because when I sit to meditate, I'm overwhelmed by, say, a certain kind of emotion or racing thoughts. So somebody who wants to, but they're having trouble getting started.
Meditation is not easy for most people, actually. And I think that's the first thing to understand, that it's not a trivial thing when you talk about training the mind. There is nothing more beneficial than a well-trained mind. And if it is that worthwhile, I don't think it's going to come too easily. Yeah. And often people, assume that meditation should be easy because all we're doing is relaxing and being peaceful. But it's very difficult to do because our minds are not conditioned in that way, especially the Western mind. And Western, not only the Western hemisphere, but I'm referring to the cultures where we've invested so much time and energy in cultivating the critical and analytical and intellectual part of the human being. And we devote years. I mean, a child starts to learn to talk at early age and is sent to school from the year 5 years old and probably continues through to college. So it's 25 years or at least 20 years of training. And that training is all to do with thinking about themselves and the world. Now, meditation is not primarily concerned with that. Meditation is concerned with teaching the mind to move towards a state of silence, a state of stillness, where it can experience a great sense of rest and ease. And not to underestimate the value of that, because the well-rested mind is fit for any work. And then one understands the value of having a mind that can think when it needs to think and rest when it needs to rest. And at present, most people, especially in our Western culture, as I said, where introspection has never been really emphasized and very little time has been given to the training in stillness and silence and teaching the mind the meditation skill, we find that people are pretty neurotic with this obsessive compulsive mental disorder called thinking about. So that's what you're confronted with when you start to meditate. It's not that there's something wrong with you, it's just a conditioning that we've got. But on the other hand, it's not fatal. We can all retrain. It requires some patience, it requires some guidance, obviously, and it requires some regular practice.
Great answer. Okay, so then finally I asked John to choose a few books that we have here in the Henry S. Olcott Memorial Library collection, books that he likes. I asked him to please include his own book, The Meditative Path, which I have read and I really loved, and it's really filled with great advice about how to apply or how to try to attain some peace within your everyday life. And I can vouch for John. This state that you see him in right now is pretty much it. It's pretty much unshakable. We've tried, and we can't do it. But if you could...
okay.
Yeah.
As I said, I'm not a great reader of books, and I do feel we have a lot of books in this library, and that's valid. It is a library, and it's an exceptional library, actually. But being the resident Buddhist, I thought I would focus on books to do with Buddhism. For a start, for people who have an interest in just having a good appreciation of what Buddhism is, the teachings of the Buddha, I can highly recommend this one book, What the Buddha Taught, by Walpola Rahula. It is not a recent book. It has been reprinted many times, but it is a classic. It's a short book, it's very concise, it's very clear, and it does give you a very comprehensive understanding of Buddhism, I think. So I always recommend that. Now, for people who are interested in meditation, yes, I do recommend my book, The Meditative Path. It is not necessarily the best book on meditation, but it is a good book. And it is in plain English. It avoids all the trappings of technicalities and special vocabulary. You know, there's nothing mysterious about meditation, and there should be nothing mysterious about explaining it. So I try to explain an approach to meditation in plain English, and trying to give a very comprehensive overview of what meditation is, because contrary to what many people think, meditation is more than just sitting still with one's eyes closed. That is formal meditation, and it's a very important part of a meditation practice, but it is only part. Meditation can actually incorporate every aspect of life if we really understand what meditation means. And so I have tried to present that in this book. Now, for those who are very diligent, very serious, and possibly very gifted, who want a very in-depth explanation of very deep states of meditation, very refined states of mind that can be developed through quite, I would say, rigorous practice, then I have found that this book, written by a good friend of mine actually, Mindfulness, Bliss and Beyond, by Venerable Ajahn Brahm, or just Ajahn Brahm, who is an English Buddhist monk who lives in Australia, in the monastery where I used to live. This book does give you a really in-depth explanation of states of meditation which are accessible but only experienced by very few people. And also it gives you some indication and clear explanation of what the goal of the Buddhist spiritual path, in other words, enlightenment, may be. And he has done a wonderful job in this book, and it is very inspiring. So these are the 3 books that I can recommend to you.
John, thank you so much.
Thank you, Dan, and thank you for listening.
Thank you.